The Saturday market buzzed with life, vendors calling out, the air thick with the scent of fresh peaches and warm bread. I was there with my daughters, Natalie, 17, and Grace, who'd just turned 15. It was her birthday, a day meant for joy after a year of grief. 8 months ago, my ex-husband, Michael, died in a car accident at 48, leaving a wound that hadn't healed. Worse, 3 weeks before his death, I'd filed for divorce, uncovering his double life, a years-long affair with Leah, who'd borne him twin boys. Leah died in the same crash, orphaning the boys and exposing Michael's lies. My girls found the proof, texts, photos, before I did, carrying the betrayal like a stone in their hearts. We were picking out honey jars when Grace's trembling voice crackled through my phone, "Mom, these women, they're yelling, they won't let us leave." I sprinted across the market, heart pounding, dodging stalls until I saw them, 6 older women, dressed like they'd come from church, circling my daughters like vultures. Grace's face was tear-streaked. Natalie stood in front, shielding her, her jaw tight. I caught the tail end of a venomous hiss from a woman inches from Grace, "You heartless little bastards, a disgrace to this community." I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I stepped between them, my voice steady as steel. "You've made your point. Get away from my daughters." The woman, face pinched with righteous fury, scoffed. "You're no better, Kira. A wife who turns her husband's family away, raising bitter rebels. Shameful." I recognized her, Edith, from my ex-in-law's church, who'd once brought us lasagna. Now, she spat accusations like scripture. I smiled, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Thank you." Then I turned, guiding Natalie and Grace away, their hands trembling in mine. The market staff, flustered by the commotion, escorted us all out. The women followed to the parking lot, whispering, judging. I got my girls into the car, drove off, and said nothing. Inside, I burned, not with rage, but with resolve. This wasn't just a spat. It was coordinated harassment, and it wasn't the first time. My ex-in-laws, Henry and Elaine, had been pushing for custody, ignoring the girls' need for space. That moment at the market wasn't a random outburst, it was a warning. I glanced at Grace in the rearview mirror, her eyes distant, and Natalie, staring out the window. They deserved better. And I'd make sure they got it. 8 months ago, my world shattered with a phone call. Michael, my husband of 20 years, was dead. A car accident, sudden and brutal, at 48. But the real devastation came later. 3 weeks before his death, I'd filed for divorce, uncovering his affair with Leah, a woman who'd lived a parallel life with him for years. They had twin boys, now 5, orphaned when Leah died in the same crash. My daughters, Natalie and Grace, discovered the truth first, photos on his phone, texts about weekend getaways while we thought he was working. They carried that betrayal, the guilt of knowing before me, and the pain of losing a father they'd once idolized. Michael's parents, Henry and Elaine, acted as if nothing had changed. They demanded to see the girls, even pushing for custody of the twins, claiming it was family duty. Natalie and Grace refused, needing time to heal through therapy, not forced reunions. But no wasn't in Elaine's vocabulary. She'd always been the puppeteer, polished, devout, with a smile that hid her control. Henry, gruff and distant, followed her lead. Their church, a tight-knit community we'd once been part of, became their weapon, whispering about our unchristian behavior. That Saturday, Grace's 15th birthday, was meant to be a reprieve. I gave her $50 to spend at the market, letting her and Natalie wander while I browsed. They were laughing, picking out chocolates, when those women, Edith and her church clique, cornered them. They didn't just attack, they recited Elaine's narrative. The girls were ungrateful, rejecting their poor orphaned brothers. I saw it in Natalie's eyes as we drove home, fury masking fear. Grace clutched her birthday bag, silent. This wasn't just about the market. It was a campaign to break us. That night, after the girls slept, I opened Facebook. Elaine's post on the church's private page was a masterclass in manipulation, 1,200 words disguised as a prayer request. She claimed we'd abandoned her, left her penniless, and refused to care for the twins. The worst lie? She said the boys were from a surrogacy arrangement, that I was infertile and rejected them out of jealousy. My breath caught, not from sadness but from the audacity. They thought they could rewrite our story. But I had something they didn't: proof. In a drawer, a thumb drive held everything: texts, photos, bank records. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, the screen's glow reflecting my resolve. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting my daughters from a family that saw them as pawns. The next morning, I called in sick, brewed black coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, a fortress of folders and my laptop. The market incident wasn't a one-off, it was an escalation. Elaine and Henry had crossed from manipulation to harassment, and I wasn't letting it slide. My hands moved with purpose, pulling out a thumb drive I'd nearly forgotten, a relic from the divorce prep. It held everything: screenshots of Michael's texts with Leah, photos of them in our home, bank records showing transfers to her account. There were emails, too, Michael and Elaine discussing how to ease the girls into meeting their brothers, as if a lie could soften betrayal. But the real weight was in the voicemails. One, from Elaine, days after Michael's death, blamed Natalie and Grace: if you hadn't pushed Kira to leave, he'd be alive. Another, from Henry, slurred and venomous, called my girls heartless brats who'll burn for turning their backs on blood. I saved every file, organized by date, labeling each with precision. This wasn't rage, it was clarity, cold and unshakable. They wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. By noon, I was at the print shop, handing the thumb drive to a clerk with silver hair. 10 copies, full color, professional binding, I said. He scrolled through the files, eyes widening. These are personal. I nodded. Think church program meets courtroom evidence. He didn't ask more, just got to work. While I waited, I stopped at a craft store, buying navy blue covers and gold embossed sleeves. Back home, I assembled the binders by hand, each a weapon of truth. The first page was a photo: Michael and Leah kissing in our living room, Grace's artwork taped to the wall behind them. Below, in elegant script, Michael Jennings and Leah Porter, a love story. It felt sharp, but honest. Each binder told the story like a novel: texts about sneaking around during our family trips, therapy notes detailing the girls' trauma, Elaine's emails urging Michael to lie for peace. The final pages held her messages to my daughters, sent days after the funeral, calling them disgraceful and selfish. By midnight, 10 binders lined my counter, identical and devastating. I barely slept, but when I did, it was the deep sleep of a storm's passing. I wasn't just fighting for me, I was fighting for Natalie and Grace, for the truth they deserved. Sunday morning, I dressed plainly: slacks, cardigan, flats, to blend in. The church, where we'd once been welcomed, loomed like a battlefield. It was the same place we'd held Michael's funeral, where hugs had whispers. I carried 10 binders, their weight grounding me. The plan was simple: expose the truth where Elaine's lies had taken root. I arrived just before service, slipping past familiar faces. In the foyer, a welcome desk held hymnals and prayer guides, unattended. With calm precision, I placed a binder beneath each row of hymnals, one for each aisle. No one stopped me. By the opening prayer, I was back in my car, pulling away, my pulse steady but my mind racing. I didn't need to stay to know what would happen. By noon, the church's Facebook group exploded. Confusion at first: what are these binders? Then fury. Someone uploaded photos: Michael and Leah's kiss, Elaine's texts, the caption a love story. Comments flooded in: this can't be real. Elaine lied about surrogacy? Those poor girls. The binders circulated like wildfire, passed during hymns, whispered over in pews. By mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed. A former church friend, Sarah, called, her voice shaky. "Kira, that binder, it's brutal." "Brutal?" I said, my tone even. "What's brutal is grown women cornering a 15-year-old at a market, calling her a disgrace." Sarah paused. "You're right. I'm sorry." That night, Natalie walked into the kitchen, eyes wide. "Mom, did you do this?" She'd seen the online chaos. I hesitated, then met her gaze. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Good." Grace, quieter, hugged me before bed, her silence louder than words. The fallout was swift. By Monday, the church was in disarray. Caleb, a friend who'd stayed neutral, texted, "Pastor shut down the Facebook group." Fights in the comments, some women knew about the affair and stayed silent. I froze. An open secret, protected to save face, while my daughters suffered. The truth wasn't just freeing, it was dismantling. I didn't celebrate, but I felt the shift. The community Elaine had weaponized was turning, and I hadn't fired a shot. The binders had done the talking. Monday morning, the church community was a storm. My phone buzzed with messages, apologies, questions, even defenses of Elaine's grief. I muted them, focusing on Natalie and Grace, who seemed lighter. Natalie braided Grace's hair before school, a small act of normalcy. Grace hummed softly, less withdrawn. They knew about the binders, though we didn't discuss it. They didn't need to, they understood this was protection, not revenge. Then Caleb called. "It's a circus," he said. "Pastor Mitchell shut down the Facebook group. Older women are accusing each other of hiding the affair." It was an open secret for some. My stomach twisted. People we'd trusted had watched us suffer, prioritizing image over truth. "There's more," Caleb added. "Elaine's been publicly shamed. Women confronted her after service, the deacons called an emergency meeting." I didn't smile. This wasn't about humiliation, it was about consequences. That afternoon, a letter arrived from an elderly church member, Agnes, apologizing to the girls for the market incident. Another came from the Women's Council, inviting me to a reconciliation lunch. I set it aside. Reconciliation didn't erase Grace's nightmares or Natalie's self-blame. Then, Wednesday, my lawyer called. "Elaine and Henry filed for emergency custody of the girls," she said. "They're claiming emotional neglect, saying you're turning them against their family." I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. "They won't win," I said. "I know," she replied, "but they're pushing for a hearing in 3 weeks. We need everything." I spent days compiling evidence, therapy notes showing the girls' progress, Elaine's voicemails, Henry's texts calling them selfish brats. I included Agnes's letter, proof even strangers saw the truth. Then, an email from Megan, Natalie's friend's mom, stopped me cold. Elaine had contacted her and others, seeking testimony that I was unstable and abusive. Some, like Susan, my judgmental neighbor, were listening. I called Megan, who confirmed, "She's building momentum." I told her no, but others might not. My resolve hardened. They were weaponizing lies, but I had a fortress of truth. By Friday, the custody filing leaked. Elaine's supporters posted veiled defenses online, but pushback grew. Caleb texted, 3 families left the church. Their kids are friends with your girls, they're done with the hypocrisy. The tide was turning, not just for me, but for Natalie and Grace, who deserved a community that didn't vilify them. The courthouse smelled of stale coffee and old wood. I sat with Natalie and Grace, their hands in mine. Natalie's jaw was set, her fingers twisting her sleeve. Grace, eyes wide, had insisted on coming. "I want to look her in the eye," she'd said. "I'm not scared anymore." Across the room, Elaine and Henry sat, polished as ever, her in a blue blouse, him staring ahead. Their lawyer opened with lies. I was bitter, unstable, poisoning the girls against their true family. She cited Elaine's Facebook post as a cry for help, ignoring its venom. Our turn came. My lawyer, Claire, stood, her voice calm but razor-sharp. She played Elaine's voicemail, the words echoing, "You little monsters, I hope you cry yourselves to sleep." The courtroom froze. Then Henry's texts, calling the girls brats. Photos followed, Michael and Leah in our home, Elaine's email urging him to lie. Finally, the binder. The judge flipped through it, her expression unreadable, then fixed on Elaine. "Do you deny this?" Elaine stammered, silent. Then, a surprise. Caleb stood in the gallery. "I'd like to speak, Your Honor." Sworn in, he spoke plainly, "I've known this family 15 years. Elaine twisted the church to support her lies, hurting these girls." Elaine gasped, but the damage was done. Claire closed with therapy notes, showing the girls' healing, and Agnes's letter, proving community support. The judge didn't hesitate. Petition denied. A restraining order is issued against the petitioners for 1 year, no contact with the minors. Turning to me, she added, "Miss Jennings, your preparation and composure are commendable. Your daughters are lucky." Outside, reporters waited, the story had leaked. One called out, "Any comment, Miss Jennings?" I faced them, holding my girls' hands. Grief doesn't excuse cruelty. Protecting your children isn't vindictive, it's parenting. Natalie squeezed my hand, Grace's eyes shone. We'd won, not just in court, but in truth. That night, we ate pizza on the floor, Grace laughing, Natalie blasting music. I cried later, alone, from relief. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield was ours. 3 weeks later, the silence felt real, no calls, no church ladies lurking. The restraining order worked, barring Elaine and Henry from contact. Natalie returned to therapy, dissecting her fear at the market. Grace started writing poetry, her notebook filled with lines like, "You called me broken, but I'm still standing." I slept through the night, my phone no longer under my pillow. Then, a letter arrived, Elaine's cursive on cream paper. No apology, just reframing, she'd lost everything, the custody fight a misstep. She begged to see the girls, citing family. I filed it, unanswered. Caleb called, the pastor stepping down. The church wants a new direction. Some members wanted to rebuild with us. I appreciated it, but some bridges are meant to burn. One Saturday, Natalie found old photos in the attic, us at the lake, Michael's arms around the girls. "Keep them?" she asked. I looked at the lie they held. "No. Remember who we are now." She nodded, setting them aside. Months passed. The church's Facebook group stayed dark. Elaine and Henry faded from their pew. We built safety, truth. Natalie laughed more, Grace sang off-key. Scars remained, but they were proof of healing. I felt it most when we sat together, no longer bracing for the next fight. We weren't just surviving, we were living. 1 year after the ruling, I stood on a community center stage, facing single parents and grandparents at a custody forum. Public speaking wasn't my strength, but conviction was. I thought silence was peace, I told them. I thought keeping quiet would protect my daughters. But silence can be permission. I won't give that again. 3 women approached afterward, tears in their eyes. I thought I was alone, one whispered. I smiled. You're not. Speak loud enough, and your people will find you. That night, I came home to brownies baking, Grace humming, Natalie dancing in socks. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Natalie raised her milk glass, to survival. I shook my head, smiling. To something better. Grace grinned, clinking her glass. To truth. We laughed, the weight I'd carried lifting. The war was over, not because the enemy surrendered, but because we'd built a life they couldn't touch. Share your story below. Have you fought for your truth? Let's talk about finding strength and speaking out.